Today we're going to be looking at The Silent Patient. At the heart of this story, we've got Alicia Berenson. She's a famous painter, living what seems to be like a perfect life, with her husband Gabriel. He's a fashion photographer. They have a beautiful home in London, successful careers, and from the outside everything just looks idyllic, But as we know, appearances can be deceiving, and this picture-perfect life is shattered one night when Alicia shoots Gabriel 5 times in the head. The brutality of the act just sends shockwaves through everyone who knew them, and the question on everyone's mind is, what could have possibly driven Alicia to do such a horrific thing? And this is where the real mystery begins. After the murder, Alicia falls completely silent, refusing to speak or offer any explanation for her actions. She becomes known as the Silent Patient, a puzzle that both fascinates and terrifies those around her. Enter Theo Favor. He's a criminal psychotherapist who becomes fixated on Alicia's case. He's drawn to the challenge of her silence, believing that he can unlock the secrets hidden within her mind. Determined to treat Alicia, Theo gets a position at the Grove. It's this secure psychiatric unit where she's being held. And Theo sees a reflection of his own past struggles in Alicia's silence. He feels a deep connection to her, and believes that by understanding her past, he can unravel the present. So he begins to dig into Alicia's history. Uncovering a childhood marked by tragedy, we learn about the devastating loss of her parents, and the particularly haunting memory of her father's suicide. These traumatic events, Theo believes, hold the key to understanding Alicia's current state. In his quest to uncover the truth, Theo discovers Alicia's secret diary. The diary becomes a window into her thoughts and emotions leading up to the murder, offering a glimpse into the turmoil hidden beneath her seemingly perfect life. Through her diary entries, we discover that Alicia struggled with mental health issues. We see her grapple with complex emotions surrounding her late father and her intense love for Gabriel. The diary paints a picture of a woman wrestling with inner demons while trying to maintain a facade of normalcy. But the diary also reveals a terrifying secret. Alicia believes she is being stalked by a mysterious figure who invades her life, leaving her feeling terrified and vulnerable. As Theo delves deeper into the diary entries, he starts to question everything he thought he knew about Alicia. He begins to suspect that maybe, just maybe, she isn't the cold-blooded killer everyone believes her to be. He wonders if she's a victim driven to a desperate act by an unseen tormentor. Filled by these newfound suspicions, Theo expands his investigation beyond Alicia. He begins to scrutinize those around her, searching for cracks in their facade, looking for any clue that might point to another suspect. He delves into Gabriel's life, exploring the possibility of infidelity. He investigates Jean-Felix, Alicia's charismatic art dealer, who seems to know more than he's letting on, and even Alicia's seemingly harmless cousin Paul comes under Theo's scrutiny. As Theo digs deeper, he uncovers a web of hidden relationships, secrets, and lies. Everyone seems to have something to hide, making it increasingly difficult to discern who is telling the truth and who is playing a deadly game. Theo finds himself walking a tightrope, balancing his personal feelings with his professional obligations. He struggles with the ethical boundaries of his role as Alicia's therapist, constantly questioning his own motives. He feels an overwhelming urge to protect Alicia, to shield her from the judgment and scrutiny of the world. But he knows he must remain objective, to separate his personal feelings from the facts of the case. Theo's own life, however, is far from stable. His marriage to Kathy, a woman he initially found captivating and irresistible, begins to unravel under the weight of his obsession with Alicia's case. He feels a growing disconnect from Kathy, plagued by suspicions of her infidelity and his own deep-seated insecurities. Haunted by his past trauma, Theo grapples with feelings of inadequacy and the fear of abandonment. He constantly seeks reassurance from Kathy, his desperation pushing her further away. The parallels between Theo's internal struggles and the entries in Alicia's diary become increasingly apparent. As Theo delves deeper into Alicia's world, his own life starts to mirror the darkness he's uncovering. He finds himself consumed by the mystery, unable to escape the pull of the case. We see Alicia through her diary entries experiencing moments of happiness and love with Gabriel. They plan for a future together, filled with hopes of starting a family. She writes about her passion for painting, crediting Gabriel for encouraging her artistic pursuits. But alongside these glimpses of joy is a creeping sense of dread. The diary entries reveal Alicia's growing fear as the stalker's presence becomes more pronounced. Her once safe and loving home transforms into a prison of fear, where every shadow could hide her tormentor. In one particularly chilling entry, Alicia describes a terrifying encounter at a local park. She recounts feeling constantly watched, her every move scrutinized by unseen eyes. Then across the park she sees him, the man who's been haunting her thoughts. Frozen with fear, she instinctively takes out her phone and captures his image, a desperate attempt to prove his existence. This photo becomes a tangible manifestation of her terror, proof that she's not imagining things. Later that day, the man appears outside her house, confirming her worst fears. Panic sets in and Alicia confides in her neighbor Barbie, who validates her concerns. But their attempts to seek help prove futile, dismissed as the ravings of a troubled woman. Theo's investigation takes a new turn when he uncovers a hidden layer of Alicia's past. She was seeing another therapist before the murder, a friend of Gabriel's named Christian. This revelation adds a new layer of complexity to the case. Christian reveals that he had been treating Alicia in an unofficial capacity, conducting sessions at his girlfriend's house. He describes Alicia as uncooperative and claims she rarely opened up during their sessions. Theo presses Christian for more information, particularly about Alicia's past trauma. He's especially interested in a suicide attempt Alicia made after her father's death. However, Christian downplays the incident, insisting that Alicia had a loving relationship with her father, and dismissing any suggestions of deeper psychological trauma. Theo, however, is not convinced. His intuition tells him that Christian is hiding something, that there's more to his relationship with Alicia than meets the eye. He senses a darkness in Christian, a subtle but unmistakable air of menace. Driven by his growing suspicions, Theo decides to confront Alicia directly. He arranges a meeting in the art room at the Grove, a space where she finds solace and expression. He hopes that within this familiar environment, he can finally break through her wall of silence and uncover the truth about the stalker she described in her diary. In a moment of calculated risk, Theo shares his discovery of the diary with Alicia. He hopes this show of trust will encourage her to open up to him. He reads aloud a passage about her father, focusing on a particular phrase. "He killed me," Alicia had written. "Dad just killed me." Theo sees this statement as a potential breakthrough. He believes it holds the key to understanding Alicia's silence and the events that led to Gabriel's death. He starts to formulate a theory, connecting Alicia's childhood trauma with her present state. During one of their sessions in the courtyard, a subtle shift occurs. Alicia breaks her silence, asking Theo for a cigarette. She admits to him that she used to smoke. Despite her limited words, Theo senses a change in their dynamic. He feels an overwhelming desire to protect her, confessing, "I feel that you need to be taken care of. I find myself wanting to take care of you, Alicia." Alicia's response is immediate and firm. "No, that's not what I want from you." Theo's left grappling with her words, trying to decipher their meaning. He's unsure what Alicia wants from him, but he's determined to find out. He seeks guidance from his supervisor, Professor Diomedes, about the challenges he's facing with Alicia's therapy. Diomedes listens patiently as Theo describes his growing headaches, feelings of anxiety, and the emotional toll of working with Alicia. Acknowledging the weight of the case, Diomedes suggests they step outside for a smoke. "Alicia is a silent siren, my boy, luring us to the rocks, where we dash our therapeutic ambition to pieces," Diomedes warns Theo. He sees Alicia's silence as a challenge, a test of Theo's abilities. He suggests that Theo might be headed for the same failure he experienced, but Theo, fueled by a mix of defiance and determination, retorts, "Unless of course I succeed." Challenging Diomedes' bleak assessment, Diomedes, intrigued by Theo's persistence, grants him permission to continue his therapy with Alicia. He instructs Theo to meet with Alicia and report back to him afterward. Theo, barely containing his excitement, eagerly agrees. While Theo navigates the complexities of Alicia's case, his personal life continues to spiral. He's tormented by thoughts of Kathy's infidelity, consumed by jealousy and distrust. He confides in his former therapist, Ruth, about his marital problems, revealing his deep-seated fears of abandonment and his belief that he's destined to be unloved. Ruth challenges Theo to confront the root of his pain, suggesting that his sadness stems from a lack of love in his childhood, a wound he's carried for years. Theo, struck by Ruth's insight, realizes that his relationship with Kathy is a reflection of his own unresolved trauma. Determined to uncover the truth about Kathy's alleged affair, Theo resorts to desperate measures. He tries to sneak a peek at her phone while she's showering, but finds nothing. Desperate for answers, he waits until Kathy leaves the room, and then reaches for her laptop. His hands tremble as he opens her email. But his search is met with disappointment. She's logged out. Disgusted with himself, Theo retreats to bed, vowing to stop his obsessive behavior. However, his resolve crumbles when Kathy returns to the bedroom. Carefully mentioning that her friend Nicole is back in London and wants to meet up, Theo, consumed by suspicion and jealousy, can't shake the feeling that Kathy is hiding something from him. His mind races, connecting dots that may not exist. He's caught in a cycle of distrust and paranoia, his personal demons mirroring the darkness he's uncovering in Elisa's case. Back at the Grove, Theo continues his investigation into Lisa's past, seeking any piece of information that might shed light on her current state. He approaches Elif, a nurse, who had a violent altercation with Alicia shortly after her arrival at the Grove. He hopes that Elif can provide some insight into Alicia's state of mind at the time. However, Elif is reluctant to talk about Alicia. She merely states that Alicia tried to kill her, refusing to elaborate on the incident. Theo, frustrated by her evasiveness, turns to Max, another patient at the Grove who is a friend of Elisa's. Theo asks Max about Alicia's silence and her relationship with Gabriel, hoping to glean any information that might help him piece together the puzzle. But Max is guarded and evasive, insisting that he liked Alicia, and dismissing Theo's questions as gossip. Theo senses that Max is holding back, that there's more to his relationship with Alicia than he's letting on. However, before Theo can press further, Tanya, Max's wife, intervenes. She tells Theo that if he truly wants to know about Alicia, he should talk to her cousin Wall. She suggests that Paul, who lives in Cambridge, knows Alicia better than anyone. Theo is intrigued by Tiny's tip, but is also puzzled by her urgency. He senses a fear in her, a desire to keep Max away from him. He makes a mental note to contact Paul as soon as possible, hoping he holds a key to unlocking the mystery surrounding Alicia. Theo's pursuit of the truth leads him to Alicia's art dealer, Jean-Felix, a charismatic figure who knew Alicia well. Jean-Felix describes Alicia as hugely fucked up, claiming that she was extremely vulnerable and struggled to cope after her father's suicide. Theo, a darkness that goes beyond mere vulnerability, he suspects that Jean-Felix might be minimizing his own role in Alicia's story, attempting to hide his own secrets. Meanwhile, Theo's therapy sessions with Alicia take an unexpected turn. During a session, Alicia presents him with a book of Greek mythology, specifically the story of Alcestis, a woman who sacrifices herself for her husband and returns from death, but remains silent. Theo, struck by the parallels between Alicia's case and the myth, seeks guidance from Professor Diomedes. He asks Diomedes why Alcestis chooses to remain silent after her resurrection. He suggests that Alcestis' silence might stem from a deep sense of betrayal, and the realization that her sacrifice was ultimately in vain. Theo, enlightened by Diomedes' interpretation, begins to see Alicia's silence in a new light. He realizes that her silence might not be a sign of guilt or madness, but rather a response to a profound and deeply personal trauma. He begins to understand that her silence is a form of power, a way of controlling her own narrative in a world that seeks to define her. Encouraged by this new perspective, Theo continues his sessions with Alicia, and when he sees his silence, he affects a seed where his Talinger comes are inherited and used against followings. The silence I come together with only original light narrative that's cheeked by the most interesting care. He begins to understand that her silence is a form of power, a way of controlling her own narrative in a world that seeks to define her. Encouraged by this new perspective, Theo continues his sessions with Alicia, encouraging her to express herself through art. He secures permission from the head nurse, Rowena, for Alicia to use the art room, despite Rowena's dismissive attitude towards Elisa's condition. To further connect with Elisa's creative process, Theo visits her former gallery in Soho. He's struck by the raw emotion and pain conveyed in her artwork, recognizing a depth of feeling that words fail to express. He shares this experience with Alicia, hoping to forge a deeper connection with her. To his surprise, Elisa begins to paint again. The art room becomes a sanctuary for her, a space where she can confront her inner demons and express the emotions she cannot articulate. As she paints, Theo watches intently, observing every stroke and color choice. He senses a shift in her, a release of suppressed emotions that words have failed to capture. The painting slowly takes shape, revealing a haunting image, a red brick building, engulfed in flames, with two figures escaping on a fire escape. The woman in the painting is undoubtedly Alicia, her red hair mirroring the color of the flames. The man carrying her to safety is Theo. The image is both terrifying and comforting, depicting a scene of rescue amidst chaos. Theo is deeply affected by the painting. Feeling an even stronger connection to Alicia, he leaves the Grove that day with a heavy heart, sensing that he's getting closer to the truth, but fearing the consequences of what he might uncover. Walking home that night, Theo feels a chill run down his spine. He senses eyes on him, a feeling of being watched. He spins around, but the street is empty. Silent and shattery, he quickened his pace, unable to shake the unsettling feeling that he's not alone. The next morning, Theo arrives at the Grove to find chaos and panic. He hears screams echoing through the corridors, the sound of agony and distress. The security guard rushes past him, ignoring his questions, and heads towards the ward. Theo, filled with dread and fearing the worst, follows closely behind, the screams intensifying as he approaches. He prays that Alicia is safe, that she's not involved in whatever horrific event is unfolding. But deep down, he can't shake the feeling that something terrible has happened, something that will change everything. So we left off with Theo rushing towards those screams, with a sense of dread hanging over him. And he finds himself at Elisa's room. He pushes through the crowd of staff and patients, and he sees Elisa lie on the floor, eyes wide with fear. But the screams, they aren't coming from her. It's Barbie. Elisa's neighbor, remember. She's in a state of complete hysteria, claiming that Alicia attacked her. Theo surveys the scene, and he spots a syringe on the floor. It doesn't take long for him to put the pieces together. Elisa somehow got a hold of some medication and injected Barbie with it. But the question is why? What could have possibly driven Elisa to this act of violence after years of silence? This incident, it really sends shockwaves through the Grove. Professor Diomedes and the head nurse Stephanie are furious with Theo. They believe that his therapy sessions have destabilized Alicia and led to this outburst. They're ready to discontinue his therapy with Alicia. They might even fire him. But Theo, he's determined to prove them wrong. He knows Alicia wouldn't hurt anyone without a reason. He's convinced that this incident, like her silence, is a way of communicating something important. A desperate cry for help masked as aggression. Fueled by this belief, Theo decides to reach out to Paul, Alicia's cousin in Cambridge, hoping to gain a different perspective on Alicia's character. Paul, who's a professor of classics, he paints a picture of Alicia that really contrasts with the image of a cold-blooded killer. He describes her as kind, gentle, and sensitive, expressing disbelief at the accusations against her. Paul insists that Alicia could never be capable of murder. Theo, struck by Paul's unwavering belief in Alicia's innocence, he senses a deep bond between them, a shared history that goes beyond just familial ties. He asks Paul about the stalker Alicia mentioned in her diary, hoping to gain some insight into the events leading up to Gabriel's death. Now, Althea dismisses the idea of a stalker, suggesting that Alicia might have been imagining things, due to her history of mental health struggles. Now, while Theo acknowledges Alicia's past struggles, he can't shake the feeling that there's more to the story than meets the eye. Paul's dismissal of the stalker feels too convenient, too quick. Theo returns to the Grove with a renewed sense of purpose, even more determined to get Alicia to talk, to understand what really happened that night. He feels a growing urgency, like time is running out, not just for Alicia, but for himself as well. Meanwhile, Theo's personal life continues to unravel. He finally confronts Kathy about her alleged affair, revealing his suspicions about her friend Nicole. Kathy, taken aback by his accusations, denies everything, accusing Theo of being paranoid and jealous, hurt and angry. Theo refuses to believe her. He digs up the past, reminding Kathy of a time when she admitted to having a troubled childhood. He suggests that she's no different from him, just as damaged and incapable of love. The argument escalates, fueled by their shared pain and insecurities. Consumed by rage, Theo tells Kathy that their entire relationship has been a lie, that he never truly loved her. He storms out of the apartment, leaving Kathy in tears, the remnants of their shattered relationship scattered around them. Theo finds himself at a crossroads, lost and alone. His marriage is crumbling, his career is on the line, and his obsession with Alicia is reaching a fever pitch. He's trapped in a maze of secrets, lies, and betrayals, unsure which path to take, seeking solace in his work, that he knows she's been through something horrific. He pleads with her to open up to him, to share her burden, to let him help her carry the weight of her silence. Alicia remains silent, but Theo senses a flicker of recognition in her eyes, a subtle shift in her demeanor. He knows he's getting through to her. Breaking down the walls she's built around herself, he clings to this hope, fueled by a desire to help Alicia find her voice again, even if it means risking everything. So as we left off, Theo's personal life is falling apart. His career is in jeopardy, but his commitment to helping Alicia remains unwavering. He just can't let it go. He's struggling to figure out what pushed Alicia to that breaking point. And he keeps coming back to that diary entry about Alcestis. Remember that woman from Greek mythology, the one who sacrificed herself for her husband, came back from the dead, but remained silent. And he remembers what Professor Diomedes said about the unimaginable rage of having someone you love taken from you, and then returned. but you're supposed to just be grateful and pretend nothing happened, and then it hits him. Alicia's silence. It's not about guilt, it's a protest. A refusal to play the role of the grateful survivor. He starts to believe that someone close to her betrayed her, someone she loved and trusted, and that betrayal shattered her completely. And then if they spell Jean-Felix, Elisa's art dealer, the one who admitted to that past relationship with her, could he be the stalker, the one who tormented Alicia before Gabriel's death? Driven by this theory, Theo confronts Jean-Felix. He accuses him of taking advantage of Alicia, of manipulating her. But Jean-Felix, he denies it all. He says their relationship was consensual, that he truly cared for Alicia, but Theo's not buying it. There's just something about Jean-Felix that doesn't sit right with him. This carefully constructed persona, it feels like a facade. And then back at the Grove, things take a dark turn. Elisa's found unconscious in her room. She's overdosed. Theo's just devastated. He rushes to her side, terrified that she might not make it. And he blames himself. Did his therapy push her to this? Did he fail to protect her? The guilt weighs heavy on him. Elisa survives, but the silence remains. This impenetrable wall. And Theo, he knows time's running out. He needs to find the truth. Not just for Alicia, but for himself. And then he remembers that conversation with Max, the patient at the Grove, the one who's friends with Alicia. Max had hinted at something dark, happening on the night of Gabriel's murder, but he refused to say more. Theo knows he needs to talk to Max again, to get him to open up. He confronts Max, demanding answers, refusing to be brushed aside, and Max, he finally cracks. He confesses that on the night of the murder, he saw someone enter Alicia's house. And it wasn't Jean-Felix. It was someone closer to Alicia, someone with access to her deepest fears and vulnerabilities, her therapist, Christian. He'd been stalking her for months. He was the shadowy figure who terrorized her at the source of her paranoia and fear. On that night, he went to her house with a plan, to kill Gabriel, and frame Alicia. He drugged her, staged the scene, and then vanished, leaving Alicia to take the fall. Theo, armed with this knowledge, he confronts Christian. The air is thick with tension. Accusations fly, but Theo has him trapped. He threatens to expose Christian's lies, to reveal his true nature to the world. Christian, backed into a corner, his web of deceit unraveling. He breaks down. He confesses to everything. The stalking, the manipulation, the drugging, the murder. He's arrested. His reign of terror finally over. Justice is served. But the question remained, can Alicia break free from the silence that has held her captive for so long? Now that Christian is behind bars, the silence loses its purpose. The truth is out. The burden lifted. And finally, Alicia speaks. It's hesitant at first, like a bird learning to fly again, but she tells Theo everything. The fear, the pain, the manipulation, and the relief of being heard, and the wreckage of his marriage. He realizes that his obsession with Elisa's case was a way to avoid his own pain, a distraction from his own need for healing. In the end, both Alicia and Theo find a measure of peace. Elisa, with her voice restored, begins to rebuild her life, reclaiming her art, her identity, her power. Theo, having learned from his mistakes and faced his demons, embraces a future filled with hope and self-awareness. It's a story about the complexities of trauma, the power of silence, and the blurred lines between victim and perpetrator. It reminds us that everyone have a story, even those who choose to remain silent, and sometimes the loudest screams are the ones we never hear. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you found it illuminating and thought-provoking, and maybe even a little unsettling. Remember, sometimes the most profound truths are hidden in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered.